Good evening, dear friend. Tonight, I invite you to leave behind the busy world and step into a place of peace and quiet. There is nothing you need to do right now. No work to finish, no worries to carry. This time is only for rest. Take a slow, gentle breath in and slowly breathe out. Feel your body becoming a little lighter with every breath. Now, imagine that you are traveling back almost 200 years to the peaceful city of London in the early 19th century. The morning sun is just beginning to rise. A soft golden light spreads across the sky. Thin mist rests gently over beautiful gardens. The air is cool and fresh, carrying the sweet scent of roses and lavender. In the middle of these peaceful gardens stands Kensington Palace. Its stone walls have watched many quiet mornings. Tall windows shine in the gentle sunlight. Birds sing happily from ancient oak trees, while a small fountain fills the air with the calming sound of flowing water. Inside the palace, everything is still. Long hallways are silent. Soft carpets cover polished wooden floors. Only a few servants quietly begin their morning work, careful not to disturb the peaceful silence. In a comfortable bedroom overlooking the gardens sleeps a little girl named Victoria. She is only a child. She has no idea that one day she will become one of Britain's most famous queens. For now, she is simply a kind and curious young princess who loves books, music, and quiet walks among the flowers. As the first rays of sunlight reach her window, Victoria slowly opens her eyes. She listens to the birds outside. She smiles softly. Another peaceful day has begun.
Victoria slowly opened her eyes as the morning sunlight filled her room with a soft, golden glow. For a moment, she stayed perfectly still. She listened to the cheerful birds outside her window. A cool breeze carried the gentle fragrance of roses through the fresh morning air. She smiled quietly. Every morning at Kensington Palace felt peaceful. There was no rush, only silence, only the gentle sounds of nature. Victoria stepped out of bed, walked to the window, and looked across the beautiful gardens, wondering what this new day might bring.
Victoria quietly left her bedroom and walked through the peaceful halls of Kensington Palace. The wooden floors shone in the soft morning light. Large paintings of kings and queens watched silently from the walls, while crystal chandeliers reflected tiny rays of sunshine. Everything felt calm. A few servants greeted the young princess with warm smiles and gentle bows. Victoria smiled kindly in return. She believed that every person deserved respect, no matter who they were. Soon she arrived in the dining room. A simple breakfast was waiting for her. There was fresh bread, sweet strawberries, warm milk, and a little honey. She enjoyed every bite slowly, never rushing through the quiet morning. After breakfast, Victoria walked toward her classroom. Her teacher was already waiting with several books resting neatly on a polished wooden table. History, poetry, music, languages. Victoria loved every lesson. She listened carefully, turned each page with curiosity, and asked thoughtful questions. Outside the tall windows, birds continued singing in the palace gardens. A gentle breeze moved through the trees, carrying the sweet scent of blooming roses. For Victoria, learning was never a duty. It was a joyful adventure. With every new lesson, her mind grew a little wiser, even though she could not yet imagine the remarkable future waiting quietly beyond the peaceful walls of Kensington Palace. After her lessons, Victoria stepped outside into the palace gardens. The afternoon air was cool and gentle. Sunlight filtered through the branches of ancient oak trees, creating soft patterns on the winding paths below. She walked slowly, with no hurry at all. Colorful flowers bloomed on every side. White roses, purple lavender, and bright daisies swayed gently in the breeze. Honeybees moved quietly from flower to flower, while butterflies floated gracefully through the warm air. Victoria stopped beside a small pond. 2 white swans glided across the still water without making a sound. She watched the tiny ripples spread across the surface until they slowly disappeared. It was a peaceful sight. She found a wooden bench beneath a great old tree and opened her favorite book. For a while, she simply read. When she reached the end of a page, she looked up and listened. The birds were singing. The leaves whispered softly above her. The fountain flowed with its gentle, endless rhythm. In moments like these, the palace felt less like a royal home and more like a quiet place where every day began and ended with peace. Victoria closed her book for a moment, smiled softly, and looked toward the endless blue sky, wondering what tomorrow might bring. The afternoon slowly drifted toward evening, and a warm golden light filled the gardens of Kensington Palace. Victoria wandered along a quiet path lined with white roses and fragrant lavender. She walked slowly, enjoying the peaceful beauty around her. A gentle breeze moved through the branches of the old oak trees, carrying the sweet scent of flowers across the gardens. She stopped beside a small stone fountain. The water flowed softly, creating a calm and steady sound that seemed to wash every worry away. Victoria closed her eyes for a moment and simply listened. Birds sang their final songs of the day. Bees buzzed gently among the flowers. The leaves whispered quietly in the evening breeze. Nearby, 2 graceful swans glided across the still pond, leaving gentle circles upon the water. Everything felt perfectly peaceful. After a while, Victoria returned to the palace. The long hallways were quiet and filled with the warm light of the setting sun. She entered a comfortable room where a beautiful piano stood beside a tall window. Music was one of her greatest joys. She sat down, placed her hands gently on the keys, and began to play. The melody was slow and gentle. Each note floated through the palace like a soft evening breeze. The servants quietly smiled as they passed the doorway. For a few peaceful moments, the entire palace seemed to breathe with the music. When the final note faded into silence, Victoria stood and walked toward the window. The sky had turned shades of soft pink, golden orange, and deep blue. The first bright star appeared above the trees. She smiled quietly. It had been another beautiful day, a day filled with learning, music, kindness, and peaceful moments. She had no idea that, in the years ahead, her life would change forever. For now, she was simply a thoughtful young princess, enjoying the quiet beauty of another evening at Kensington Palace. As darkness slowly settled across the gardens, lanterns began to glow along the winding paths, and the palace became calm once again, ready to welcome another peaceful night. As evening settled gently over Kensington Palace, the last golden rays of sunlight faded behind the ancient trees. The gardens became quieter with every passing moment. The cheerful songs of the birds slowly came to an end, and the cool evening breeze carried the peaceful fragrance of roses, lavender, and freshly cut grass. Victoria stepped out onto a small stone terrace overlooking the palace gardens. She rested her hands lightly on the smooth railing and looked across the peaceful landscape before her. The fountains continued to flow with their gentle, endless rhythm. Tiny lanterns began to glow along the winding garden paths, filling the evening with a warm and comforting light. In the distance, she could hear the soft sound of horses pulling elegant carriages along the quiet streets of London. The city was slowly preparing for another peaceful night. Victoria loved this time of day. It was neither busy nor silent. It was simply calm. She closed her eyes for a moment and listened carefully. The breeze, the water, the distant church bells. Everything blended together like a gentle lullaby. Soon, one of the palace servants quietly invited her inside for the evening meal. The dining room was warm and welcoming. Candles flickered softly across the polished table, filling the room with a golden glow. Dinner was simple but comforting. Fresh vegetables from the palace gardens, warm bread, a bowl of rich soup, sweet apples picked earlier that afternoon. Victoria enjoyed each bite slowly, grateful for the peaceful home that surrounded her. After dinner, she thanked everyone with her usual kindness. Good manners had become a natural part of her life. Before going to bed, she visited the palace library for just a few quiet minutes. Rows upon rows of books filled the tall wooden shelves. Some told stories of brave kings. Others spoke of distant lands, great oceans, and magnificent castles. Victoria gently selected a small book and sat beside the fireplace. The fire crackled softly. The room felt warm and safe. As she turned each page, her imagination carried her far beyond the palace walls. She dreamed of discovering the world, meeting new people, and learning something wonderful every single day. Outside, the moon slowly climbed into the dark blue sky. Silver light rested upon the palace gardens. The fountains continued their peaceful song beneath the stars. Victoria closed her book and smiled quietly. She could never have imagined that in only a few short years, her own life would become part of history. But tonight, she was simply a young girl ending another gentle day at Kensington Palace. She carried her candle through the quiet hallway. Its small flame danced softly with every step. The palace had become completely still. Tomorrow would bring another beautiful morning, another peaceful lesson, and perhaps one tiny step closer to the extraordinary future waiting just beyond the horizon.
The next morning arrived quietly over Kensington Palace. Before the sun had fully risen, the gardens were already alive with gentle sounds. Tiny birds welcomed the new day with cheerful songs, while a cool breeze carried the fresh scent of roses through the morning air. Victoria woke naturally, without anyone calling her. For a few peaceful moments, she remained beneath her warm blankets, listening to the soft music of the morning. It was her favorite way to begin the day. She believed that every morning offered a chance to learn something new. After dressing, she stepped into the palace garden while the grass was still covered with sparkling drops of dew. The world felt calm. The air was cool against her face. She walked slowly along a narrow stone path until she reached an old oak tree that had stood there for many generations. It was one of her favorite places. She sat on a wooden bench beneath its wide branches and watched the sunrise spread across the gardens. Golden light touched every flower. The fountains shimmered like glass. Even the smallest spiderwebs sparkled with tiny drops of morning dew. For a little while, Victoria simply watched. She wasn't thinking about lessons. She wasn't thinking about tomorrow. She was simply enjoying the quiet beauty of the present moment. Soon, one of the palace gardeners approached with a gentle smile. He carried a small basket filled with fresh flowers that had just been picked. White roses, blue cornflowers, purple lavender. He explained how every flower needed patience, gentle care, and time before it could bloom. Victoria listened with great interest. She thanked the gardener and carefully held one white rose in her hands. Its petals were soft as silk. Its fragrance was light and calming. As she continued her walk, she realized that people were not so different from flowers. With kindness, with patience, and with time, they too could grow into something wonderful. The morning sun climbed higher into the clear blue sky. Another peaceful day was beginning at Kensington Palace. And although Victoria could not yet see it, every quiet lesson, every thoughtful conversation, and every gentle morning was slowly preparing her for the extraordinary path that lay ahead.
As the morning continued, Victoria returned to the palace for her lessons. Her teacher was already waiting beside a large wooden desk where several books had been carefully arranged. The room was bright with natural light. Tall windows overlooked the peaceful gardens, and a gentle breeze moved the white curtains ever so slightly. Today's first lesson was history. Victoria listened with great attention as her teacher spoke about great rulers from long ago. Some had become famous because of their strength. Others were remembered because of their wisdom and kindness. Victoria wondered which was more important, power or kindness. Her teacher smiled and said, "A ruler who listens with a kind heart is remembered for generations." Those words stayed with Victoria. She quietly wrote them into her notebook. After history came music. Victoria sat at the piano and gently placed her fingers on the keys. She played slowly, allowing every note to fill the quiet room. The melody was soft and peaceful, like rain falling gently on a garden. Even the birds outside seemed to pause for a moment. When the lesson ended, she thanked her teacher with a warm smile. In the afternoon, she visited the palace library once again. Rows of beautiful books stretched from floor to ceiling. The scent of old paper and polished wood filled the room. Victoria carefully chose a book of fairy tales and settled into a comfortable chair beside the window. As she turned each page, her imagination carried her across quiet forests, peaceful rivers, and distant castles. Outside, sunlight danced across the gardens. Inside, time seemed to slow. For Victoria, these quiet hours were among the happiest of all. She did not know it yet, but every peaceful day was gently shaping the wise and thoughtful queen she would one day become. The afternoon sun rested gently above Kensington Palace, filling every corner of the gardens with a warm, golden light. Victoria wandered slowly along a quiet path that she had walked many times before. There was no need to hurry. Every step gave her another chance to notice something beautiful. A small robin landed on the stone path just a few feet away. It tilted its head as if it were curious about the young princess. Victoria smiled but remained perfectly still, allowing the tiny bird to enjoy the peaceful afternoon. Nearby, a gentle breeze moved through the branches of the old oak trees. The leaves whispered softly above her, creating a calm rhythm that seemed to slow the passing of time. She reached her favorite wooden bench beside the pond. The water was perfectly still. Only the graceful swans created tiny circles that spread gently across the surface before disappearing again. Victoria watched them quietly. She wondered if true happiness could be as simple as this moment. A quiet garden, a gentle breeze, the warm afternoon sun, and nothing more. After a few peaceful minutes, she opened the small book she had carried with her from the palace library. Its pages told stories of travelers who crossed great mountains and wide oceans in search of distant lands. Victoria imagined calm forests, quiet villages, and beautiful castles surrounded by rivers. Each page carried her imagination a little farther from the palace, yet somehow made her appreciate her peaceful home even more. She closed the book for a moment and looked up at the clear blue sky. White clouds drifted slowly overhead. Everything moved at nature's gentle pace. There was no rush, only peace. Victoria remained on the wooden bench for a little while longer, enjoying the quiet beauty that surrounded her. A family of ducks glided slowly across the pond, following one another in a gentle line. The water reflected the bright blue sky and the tall green trees, making the whole garden feel like a peaceful painting. She stood and continued her walk along a narrow path bordered by lavender and white roses. The sweet fragrance filled the cool afternoon air. Every flower seemed to bloom without hurry. Every tree stood quietly beneath the gentle sunlight. As she walked, Victoria noticed an elderly gardener carefully planting a young oak tree. She stopped to watch for a moment. The gardener smiled kindly and said, "This little tree may grow for many generations. We plant it today, knowing others will enjoy its shade many years from now." Victoria thought about those words as she thanked him and continued her walk. She realized that some of the most meaningful things in life take time. A tree does not become tall in a single day. A beautiful garden is not created in a single season. And wisdom grows little by little, through quiet days filled with patience and learning. The afternoon slowly drifted toward evening. The golden sunlight became softer. Long shadows stretched across the palace gardens. High above, a few birds circled peacefully before returning to their nests. Victoria took one last look at the gardens before walking back toward Kensington Palace. She felt calm. She felt grateful. She carried with her the quiet lessons of the day, never knowing that these simple moments of peace were gently shaping the future queen she would one day become. As the palace doors opened, a warm light welcomed her home, and another peaceful evening was ready to begin. Only quiet. Only another beautiful afternoon waiting to become a treasured memory. The afternoon sunlight rested gently over the royal gardens. The world around Windsor Castle felt quiet and peaceful, as if nature itself had slowed down for a moment. Queen Victoria walked slowly along the garden path, surrounded by beautiful flowers and tall green trees. She often found comfort in these quiet walks. Away from the responsibilities of the crown, the garden gave her a place to think, remember, and enjoy simple moments. The soft fragrance of roses filled the air. Lavender flowers moved gently with the breeze, and small butterflies flew peacefully from one flower to another. Victoria looked around the garden with a calm smile. She loved these peaceful corners of her home, where she could listen to the sounds of nature. The gentle songs of birds came from the trees above. The leaves whispered softly in the wind. Everything felt warm and comforting. As she reached a small pond, she stopped for a moment. The clear water reflected the blue sky, while graceful white swans moved slowly across the surface. The quiet beauty of the scene reminded her of many precious memories. She thought about Prince Albert and the peaceful afternoons they had shared together. They had walked through gardens, talked about their family, and dreamed about the future. Although those moments belonged to the past, the love and memories remained close to her heart. Queen Victoria took a slow breath and closed her eyes for a moment. The sound of the water, the gentle movement of the trees, the soft singing of birds. All of these little things brought her a feeling of peace. She realized that even the busiest lives needed moments of stillness. In the quiet embrace of nature, she found comfort and strength. As the afternoon slowly turned toward evening, the palace bells rang softly in the distance. Queen Victoria took one last look at the beautiful garden before slowly walking back toward the palace. The peaceful evening was waiting for her.
The evening slowly arrived over Windsor Castle. The golden light of the afternoon faded away, and the palace became wrapped in a peaceful silence. Queen Victoria returned from her garden walk and entered the grand halls of the palace. The familiar walls, the beautiful paintings, and the soft glow of the lamps welcomed her back. Inside the palace, everything moved gently and quietly. Servants prepared the evening rooms, candles were placed carefully on tables, and the warm light created a comfortable atmosphere throughout the castle. Victoria walked slowly through the hallway, taking in the peaceful surroundings. Although she was the queen of a great empire, these quiet moments were often the ones she treasured most. She entered her private sitting room, a place where she could leave behind the noise of royal duties and enjoy a little time for herself. The room was filled with warmth. A small fire burned softly in the fireplace. Antique books rested neatly on wooden shelves, and fresh flowers decorated the table near the window. Queen Victoria sat in her favorite chair and looked outside. The garden she had visited earlier was now covered in the gentle colors of evening. She thought about the simple beauty of the day, the flowers, the birds, the peaceful water, and the memories that had filled her heart. On a nearby table rested a few letters and a small diary. These were precious reminders of her family, her experiences, and the many years she had spent serving her people. Victoria slowly opened her diary and began to write. She recorded the quiet moments of the day, the thoughts that had passed through her mind, and the gratitude she felt for the peaceful world around her. The candle beside her flickered softly. The fireplace made a gentle crackling sound. The palace outside became quieter with every passing moment. And as the night grew deeper, Queen Victoria continued writing, surrounded by warmth, memories, and peace. The candlelight softly filled Queen Victoria's private room. Outside the tall windows, the night had completely covered Windsor Castle, and the gentle sound of the wind moved through the trees. Victoria sat quietly at her wooden desk. In front of her were a few old letters, carefully kept for many years. Each letter carried a memory. Some reminded her of her childhood days at Kensington Palace. Some carried the voices of family members and friends who had shared important moments of her life. She slowly opened one of the letters and began to read. The words on the paper brought back memories of a different time. a time when she was a young princess, learning about the world around her. She remembered the days when she walked through palace gardens, studied with her teachers, and dreamed about the future. Life had changed so much since those early years. From a young girl inside Kensington Palace, she had become the queen of a vast empire. There had been many responsibilities, many challenges, and many moments that tested her strength. But there had also been happiness. There had been family gatherings, peaceful evenings, and beautiful memories that remained forever in her heart. Victoria placed the letter down gently and looked at the small candle beside her. The flame moved softly, creating a warm, golden glow across the room. She felt thankful for the journey she had traveled. Every moment, whether joyful or difficult, had helped shape the person she had become. The quiet room, the old letters, and the peaceful night reminded her that memories were like gentle lights. They stayed with us, even as years passed. Queen Victoria closed her diary and carefully returned the letters to their place. The palace was now completely silent. Only the soft ticking of a clock and the gentle sound of the fire remained. Slowly, the queen prepared to rest, carrying the peaceful memories of the day with her. The night grew deeper over Windsor Castle. The busy sounds of the day had disappeared, leaving behind a peaceful silence throughout the grand halls. Queen Victoria slowly walked back to her private chamber. The soft glow of candlelight followed her along the quiet corridors, where beautiful paintings and old memories rested on the walls. The palace felt different at night. During the day, it was a place of meetings, conversations, and important decisions. But at night, it became a place of rest, reflection, and calm. Victoria entered her bedroom, where everything was prepared for a peaceful evening. The curtains were gently closed, the fireplace gave a warm glow, and fresh flowers filled the room with a delicate fragrance. She sat near the window for a few moments and looked out at the moonlit gardens. The trees stood quietly beneath the silver light of the moon. The flowers that had welcomed the morning now rested peacefully in the night. Victoria thought about the passing of time. Years had moved quickly, bringing many changes and many memories, but she believed that every day carried its own small moments of beauty. A kind word, a peaceful walk, a beautiful sunset, a quiet evening surrounded by memories. These simple things made life meaningful. She picked up a small book from the table and read a few. The first gentle light of morning appeared over Windsor Castle. The darkness of the night slowly disappeared, and a peaceful golden glow began to touch the palace gardens. The birds welcomed the new day with soft songs. The leaves moved gently in the morning breeze, and the flowers opened slowly to the warmth of the sunlight. Inside the palace, Queen Victoria peacefully awakened. She opened her eyes and looked toward the tall windows of her bedroom. The morning light entered softly, creating a warm and comforting feeling around the room. A new day had begun. Victoria believed that every morning was a quiet gift, a chance to begin again, to learn something new, and to appreciate the beauty of life. She slowly prepared for the day ahead. The palace servants moved quietly, arranging her morning tea and preparing the rooms with care. Soon, Queen Victoria sat beside the window with a warm cup of tea in her hands. From there, she could see the beautiful gardens outside. The same gardens that had brought her peace the day before were now shining under the fresh morning sunlight. She watched the birds flying between the trees and smiled softly. Before beginning her royal duties, Victoria enjoyed these small moments of quiet. They gave her the strength and calmness she needed for the responsibilities ahead. After her morning tea, she looked through her schedule for the day. There would be letters to read, meetings to attend, and decisions to make. But she always remembered the importance of balance. A great leader also needed moments of rest, reflection, and kindness. The morning continued peacefully inside the palace. The sound of footsteps echoed softly through the halls. The sunlight grew brighter, and Queen Victoria prepared herself for another day of service, carrying with her the calmness and wisdom she had gathered from the quiet moments of life. The morning continued peacefully inside Windsor Castle. The gentle sunlight spread across the palace halls, and the quiet rhythm of a new day began. After enjoying her morning tea, Queen Victoria moved to her private office. This was one of the places where she spent many hours carefully carrying out her responsibilities. On the large wooden desk before her were letters, documents, and messages from different parts of her kingdom. Victoria believed that every letter represented a person, a family, or community that needed attention. She read each message carefully and patiently. Although she was the queen of a great empire, she understood that leadership was not only about ceremonies and grand occasions. It was also about listening, caring, and making thoughtful decisions. The room remained peaceful as she worked. A small vase of fresh flowers stood beside her papers. The soft ticking of a clock filled the quiet space, reminding her that every moment was valuable. From time to time, she paused to look outside the window. The gardens were bright with morning light. Birds moved between the trees, and the flowers swayed gently in the breeze. These small glimpses of nature gave her a moment of calm before returning to her duties. Victoria carefully signed documents and reviewed important reports. She took her time, believing that patience and understanding were important qualities for a ruler. As the hours passed, the palace slowly became more active. Footsteps could be heard in the corridors. People arrived for meetings. The day's work continued, but inside her office, Queen Victoria remained calm and focused. She carried the memories of peaceful mornings, quiet gardens, and the lessons she had learned throughout her life. With kindness, patience, and determination, she continued her journey as a queen. And another beautiful day unfolded within the walls of Windsor Castle. The afternoon arrived gently at Windsor Castle. The bright morning slowly turned into a softer light, filling the palace rooms with a warm and peaceful feeling. After finishing her morning duties, Queen Victoria took some time to meet with the people who worked closely with her. She believed that kindness and respect were important parts of leadership. Inside the palace, everyone moved with care and quiet dedication. The halls were filled with gentle footsteps, polite conversations, and the soft sounds of daily life. Victoria greeted those around her warmly. She understood that a palace was not only made of grand rooms and beautiful decorations, it was also made of the people who gave their time and effort every day. Later, she walked through another part of the palace and stopped near a large window. Outside, the gardens were glowing under the afternoon sun. The trees moved slowly in the breeze. The flowers danced gently. The peaceful view reminded her to always appreciate the simple beauty around her. Queen Victoria often found comfort in nature. Even with the many responsibilities of being a monarch, she knew that quiet moments helped bring balance to life. In the afternoon, she returned to her private room and enjoyed a few moments of rest. A cup of tea was placed beside her, along with a few books she enjoyed reading. The peaceful atmosphere allowed her thoughts to slow down. She reflected on her family, her memories, and the many years she had spent serving her people. Outside the window, the world continued moving peacefully. The birds sang. The flowers bloomed. The gentle breeze carried the fresh scent of the garden. Queen Victoria smiled softly, grateful for the calm moments hidden within each busy day. And as the afternoon continued, Windsor Castle remained a place of warmth, history, and quiet beauty.